Hey there, friends. I am so glad y'all are back here with me on YouTube for another week. I have loved adding more videos to my YouTube channel, so I hope that you're going to click the red subscribe button and watch the new videos that I post each week. They usually posted on Sunday or Monday at the beginning of the week to give you some encouragement tips or planning help or show you what we're doing in our own school this week. So make sure that you subscribe. So today's video is for new homeschool moms primarily. And I know that there are so many of you out there because you tell me, I receive emails from you that say, I'm drowning and I don't really even know where to start. Can you help me? Or you comment on my Facebook page, or better yet, you fill out the little reader survey when you sign up for my email newsletter, and that tells me exactly what you need and what you need help with. What kind of things you're looking for at Mama's Learning Corner. And so many of you say that you're a new homeschool mom, don't really know where to start, you're just kind of winging it, and you don't like feeling that way. So I'm hoping that I can share these 3 resources with you and they can help guide you a little bit better. Now, these 3 books are written by people that are way more wise than I am. And sadly, I have not read many of these until the last year or two. Let me give you a little bit of background. I started homeschooling when my oldest son was going into kindergarten. So I had a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 15-month-old, and I was pregnant with our 4th baby. And so this is like in August, September of when my oldest would start kindergarten. And it's not that I did not want to research methods or research homeschooling, or it's not that I didn't want to homeschool. I really did. But boy, I was tired and I was exhausted and I was overwhelmed with just the day-to-day responsibilities that I had. So I didn't have time to adequately research homeschool like I wanted to. And we were not people that were going to homeschool from the beginning. We were going to send our kids to private school. And it just so happened that the Lord meant for them to stay home. And He called us to homeschool. So it's not like I'd had years to prepare for this. You know, we were kind of had a few weeks to prepare, and that was that. So I didn't have time to fully research homeschooling like I wanted to. And, you know, then my 4th baby arrived. You know, it's just a busy time. My littlest girls are only 19 months apart. It's just busy. So I still really didn't have time to research homeschooling like I really wanted to until my oldest was in 3rd or 4th grade. I know. But, you know, I had to just give myself grace because I was just doing the best I could do. We had a lot of learning in those very early years of homeschool. It may not be what I wish it had been, but there was a lot of learning that was really good and rich and wonderful. And, you know, our family thrived during that time. So even though I hadn't researched homeschooling like I wanted to, I still feel like those are really good years for us. So now keep in mind, my oldest now is in 5th grade. So now I have a 5th grade, 3rd grade, 1st grade child. And then I also have like a beginning kindergartner girl who's almost 5. So I have a little bit more experience and a little bit more wisdom. But, oh goodness, I just have so much more to learn. However, if I was a mother that could reach back and talk to myself in those early homeschool days, this is what I wish that I had known. So the resources that I'm going to share are not for a mother who's trying to decide if she should homeschool or not. This is for the mother that's in that next step, which is, okay, we are going to homeschool, and now what do I do? Because there's so many resources available, I don't even know where to start. And I've got these other littles, and what am I going to do with them? So these are the 3 resources you need to look at. So the next question is, why did you only choose 3? Because there's tons of homeschooling books on the market. Well, that's so true. And I've read several of them at this point. But if you are trying to figure out where to start in your homeschool, these are the 3 that you just must have. Kind of filter out all of the rest of the other noise, whether it's reading blogs or reading homeschool forums or Facebook or even reading other homeschool books. Kind of just put those on the back burner for right now and filter them out. And then these are 3 homeschool books that you can turn to time and time again, and they will help you guide the way you think about homeschooling, how you want your own homeschool to run, the learning styles of your children, and just really good resources and that you can practically implement. So let's get started. So the first book that I want to share with you is by Kathy Duffy, and it's 101 Top Picks for Homeschool Curriculum. This is definitely about choosing the right curriculum that can really fit your child's learning style. Now, I will tell you, when we first started homeschooling, I just had no idea there were such varied learning styles. As most of you know, I was a nurse for 10 years before I stayed home once we had our third baby. So my background is definitely not in education, but I have quickly alleviated that and taught myself how to teach my children, and that's just by reading a ton of books for homeschooling mothers. And this is a great one to start with. So, in the introductory pages, there's lots of essential questions that you have to ask yourself, and I'll give you an example. What are things that you think are important for your children to learn? You know, are you a school that is really heavy with academics, as we all should be, or does character play a really important role in how you are going to parent and teach your children every day? You know, are you going to be willing to stop what you're doing in science and correct character issues? So these are definitely ideas that you should work through. Lots of priority setting. You know, what are my priorities for my children every day? For example, in our own home, my priorities for my children are to be respectful, have good attitudes, respect me and obey me, learn about God throughout the day. You know, we have very simple yet practical goals that I write down for them at the beginning of every year. And so this gives you a start in how to start shaping those goals and forming those goals. Also, questions like, do I want to teach all of my children together, or do I want to single them out for subjects? Would you prefer to use real books, which we call living books, or would you prefer to use a more textbook type style? That would be, you know, that you would find like in a more traditional school setting. Wonderful questions you don't want to skip over. These are essentials in figuring out what curriculum to use and also how your day is going to run. Those are essential. My favorite part to this book is the approaches to education. Okay, I will just tell you that when we started homeschooling, I had no idea that there were so many methods to education for children. You know, there's the traditional school approach with textbooks. There's the Charlotte Mason, you know, more living books type style. There's classical education. Oh, you know, there's just Montessori, Waldorf. There's just, you know, numerous methods. Once I could kind of come out of a little bit of that baby fog from having my fourth baby, I started to research those. I was so overwhelmed. I remember being in tears. What am I going to do? Because I don't understand these methods. I don't know how to figure out which one is going to appeal to my child. I was very overwhelmed with the amount of information that there was and how to filter through it. I wish I had known about this little 2 pages back then. It would have made me be able to really narrow down my goals for my own homeschool. So the questions are like, do I prefer predictable structure? Yes, no. I prefer workbooks, teacher manuals, and answer keys. Well, you may love that, but if you're more of the living book Charlotte Mason style, you might, you know, just say worksheets. Ugh, not for me at all. Do you think making field trips are an essential part of your homeschool? You know, lots of things just to really spark your ideas and your dreams about what you want your homeschool to be. Don't skip over these pages when you read this book. And then after you figure that out, you tally up your little score at the bottom and it tells you, oh, I lean more towards the Charlotte Mason way. Oh, I lean more towards classical. I definitely lean more towards traditional. You know, it helps you decide which you do. But what you might find is that you like a little bit of each of these styles. So for in our own homeschool, we're what you would describe as more eclectic than anything else. we read a lot of living books. In fact, I don't think we use any traditional textbooks at all, now that I think about it. We used Rod and Staff for English for just a little while, and that's about it. And we use traditional math books, math type textbooks. But we're a little mix of everything. We do history in like a classical type cycle where we cycle through history every 4 years. But within that, we read all living books. There's not a history textbook in our home. But, we also do little unit studies here and there, like with science, where my children and I study the desert. We're going to study like forest animals next. So there's also little unit studies built in. So I think for most homeschoolers, you don't fit into one category cut and dry. And that's why there's so much great freedom in homeschool. You can totally be in whatever category you want to be in. If you want to read living books mostly and still add in worksheets, you can totally do that. So love that about homeschooling. So after you complete your little graph, then you come in and you read about each one of these styles. And it's just a quickie little 1 to 2 page. This is what it means if you lean more towards classical. This is what it means if you lean more towards traditional. And then the whole rest of the book is resources to help you with that. So you know that if you lean more Charlotte Mason style, then here are the books, here is the curriculum that moves more in that direction. If you're more with traditional type text, like you really like worksheets and you like answer keys and giving tests, like if you think your children will thrive in that environment, well, here is the type of curriculum that you can use that's available for that type of learning style. This book, absolutely love it. And honestly, I did not find it at my library until this past summer. In fact, I've checked it out that many times. That was like 4 months ago. So I've checked it out a lot. It's especially, even if you have homeschooled for many, many years, it's good just to take a refresher look at those different learning styles, because it's not to say that if your oldest is a kindergartner and you start out Charlotte Mason, that you have to continue through Charlotte Mason until he graduates. Well, I think that's probably not very practical, and it just doesn't give you the freedom that homeschool does. So what if in a different season of life, Charlotte Mason isn't quite the best fit? What if it means that we need to go to more of a classical approach, or maybe we need to go to a completely different approach and do only unit studies? So use this as a guide, but also be willing to bend. Pray over these learning styles and pray over this curriculum and, what is going to be the best fit for my family. But to get your feet wet and to solidify what these different types of learning styles mean, this is going to help you. So when you hear people say, oh, we use Sunlight, or oh, we use, My Father's World, or oh, we do only unit studies, then you'll have a better idea of what that means. And also, when you know about all the different types of methods, it helps you know and be able to understand what exactly is going to be the best fit for your family. Your kids may actually absolutely balk at like a traditional textbook, and that's fine if they do. Well, you can just go through all that curriculum and knock it off the list, and then you can move on to the next type until you can figure out what is going to work best for your family. So this is Kathy Duffy's 101 Top Picks for Homeschool Curriculum. And actually, I think the newest version is 102. So I'll make sure I link to the most updated version in the post. The next book I want to share with you is Educating the Wholehearted Child, and it's by Clay and Sally Clarkson. And I will tell you from the get-go that this is aimed towards Christian homeschoolers. Sally Clarkson has done so much wonderful work in writing books and lectures, and she often speaks, at public speaking events, conferences for moms, just what it looks like to be a Christian homeschool mom. And she just has a very gentle way about her that I think homeschool moms really need. And she's just encouraging. But Clay is her husband and is the author of this book. Now, I said at the beginning of this video that this isn't really a video for people that are trying to decide whether I should homeschool or not. So while this book certainly focuses on the next step, choosing curriculum, that kind of thing, The beginning of the book is really helping a Christian homeschooler define what their job should be. And also, just so many little gems, little nuggets that you can use as a homeschool mom. So when people are attacking your decision, which it will be attacked by someone, whether it's a friend or neighbor or relative, these are the rebuttals that I can use. There was a section on 10 scriptures that are biblical that point towards homeschooling. 10 biblical reasons to homeschool. Other things are, it even touches on discipline, spiritual discipline, verbal discipline, just ideas. I love that it is saturated with scripture throughout each column. And also just little nuggets of wisdom. If you go to a private Christian school, if your family makes that choice, then these are the way that is going to be similar to homeschool, and these are going to be the things you're giving up. So I really like the beginning of it. The second section deals more with trying to get your mind away from the traditional school setting that so many of us had. I grew up in public school. That's the only frame of reference I have. So this book does a really good job in helping me realize that type of school setting does not have to be our home if I don't want it to be. The other really main focus of this next section is that homeschooling is so much more than academics. And I realized that really early on. It is so much more than academics. Everything starts in a child's heart. If he's having a rebellious spirit that day, that has to be addressed before we can ever move to math. Maybe your child is having just a wonderful day where they share really well, they're obeying the first time you ask. Those are things to be praised. So before you get to that, spelling lesson, you can take a few moments and say, I love your attitude today. You have obeyed me in every single, task I've asked you to do. Thank you for having such a good attitude today. So this next section is really focusing on the heart of your child and what do you really want your children to learn. I also love the book by Sally Clarkson called Seasons of a Mother's Heart. Tuck that title away because you'll need it in about a year. I have to reread that book every year. So when you've been homeschooling a while, definitely turn back to that one, Seasons of a Mother's Heart. And it really helped me see that academics are wonderful and they are a huge priority in our homeschool. But the biggest priority is character and teaching my children to love the Lord. And most importantly, that God loves them. So that's the next section of this book. And then the last part of this book deals with teaching methods. Like I mentioned before, Charlotte Mason versus classical versus unit study. It gives wonderful suggestions of those. There was a great list in here about, you want your children to read living books. Oh, well, these are the types of curriculum you might want to look at. 5 in a row, Ambleside online, those types of things. So lots of good practical information here. It's very similar to Kathy Duffy's in that it deals with learning styles and what is the best approach for your specific child. However, the difference in those two books is that this one really addresses the heart and character of your child and why that must be a top priority for us as Christian parents. The last book I want to share with you is my favorite. I saved it till last. And sadly, I did not find this book until like 3 or 4 months ago. It was during the summer. Ridiculous that I didn't know about this book sooner. It's called The Read Aloud Handbook, and it's by Jim Trelease, Trelease. I'm not sure I said that correctly. Oh my goodness, what a treasure trove of information. Thankfully, I have read aloud to my children, forever. we just are big readers in this home. But I think this is just really essential that every mom, every homeschool mom, but every mom too, should read this. Lots of the beginning of the book is more statistics, neat stories about how they used to read aloud in cigar factories. That was a really neat story. You should make sure you don't skip over that part. Lots of questions answered, such as what kind of read alouds should we do in preschool? What makes a good read aloud? At what age can you begin chapter books? Is it ever too late to start reading aloud to your child? Excellent, excellent questions. Why is something as simple as reading to a child, why is that so effective in helping them encourage their language skills and become better writers and have excellent vocabularies? What is it? So as homeschoolers, I think we naturally read a lot to our children during the day. And we certainly expect them to learn to read well and enjoy reading on their own. I mentioned goals and priorities earlier in the video. And one of those priorities is for my children to love reading. Well, what makes them love reading? Well, for one thing, when it's not hard to them, and reading can only become not hard and can only become easy through lots of practice. So we have lots of practice with phonics and reading because I want them to love it and I want it to be easy. The other way to help them love reading is to provide them, saturate their environment with just really good books. I'm not talking about like ho-hum kind of books. I'm talking like page turners. Like it's, can I stay up just 10 more minutes to read what's going to happen next? I want them to experience that type of pleasure when they read. So this book is superior, just superior in helping you understand why reading aloud is so important. Answers many of those questions that have to do with age. When should my children start reading? Fill in the blank. And then the last half of the entire book are read aloud suggestions. These are excellent. It gives age ranges that it would be appropriate for. And it also gives just, a little paragraph about what the book is about. It tells you if there's any type of issue you might need to be aware of, if you have sensitive children, if it involves death, for example, like the death of a pet, it would give you that type of information. It also tells you books that are similar to this book. So I can't tell you the times that I've already taken this to the library with me. Excellent book. I can't get enough of it. In fact, like this should be a book that you give to mothers at baby showers, because even though it's a couple of years, till they can read aloud and their children can understand it, Jim Trelease says it's never too early to read aloud to them. And, it gives them a great foundation for them to start teaching their own children, even if they choose not to homeschool. Love this book. Love it. In fact, speaking about read alouds, they have just become a mainstay in our homeschool day. We love them. Even if we don't get to read our favorite, the current book that we're reading aloud during the day, I'll often read a chapter or two to my children at nighttime just before bed so we can hear what happens next in our story. I've listed several of our favorite recent read alouds on a read alouds page on my site. I'll make sure to link to that in the comments and go take a peek at those. Now, I also make sure I write a little paragraph about what they are, any issues that there might be, just so parents are aware. I would never recommend a book that I haven't read myself, so each of these read alouds that I recommend have definitely been proofed by me first. So if you are a new homeschooling mom, first of all, I would encourage you to give yourself a ton of grace, especially if you have more little children at home. How to teach your olders and have littles at home is a video for another day, but I know that that's a real challenge. That's another challenge that many of you have written to me about. So we'll do another video on that at a different time. But I would encourage you to give yourself a lot of grace. There is a big learning curve for new moms that are homeschooling. I think that's just the way it is. Anytime you take on this type of endeavor, there's a lot of education that you need to have. So you can easily start with just these 3 books that I mentioned in this video. It will give you just a significant foundation for where to go from here. Like I said, there's just such a bombardment in the homeschool world with activities and lessons and worksheets and ideas. And while that's wonderful and we are so blessed to have those things, it can be overwhelming to filter and weed through all of that. So go check these 3 books out from your library. If you're able to buy them, the one that I would buy would be this one. If you're only able to buy one of them. I'm a firm believer in having well-stocked home library shelves if we can afford it. We don't have a lot of clothes, but we have a lot of books. Books are definitely a priority for us. So if you're only going to buy one, I would buy this one because you will refer to it time and time again. The other ones are great to have on the shelf, but you can certainly check them out from your library if they're available. If not, look have your library look at interlibrary loan. We get a lot of books through interlibrary loan, even though we have a nice library system. So if you are a new homeschool mom, I am so thrilled for you. You are on a journey that is unbelievable. It'll bring you to tears, and it'll bring you to your knees many, many days. But the joys of teaching your children, being able to help shape their character on a daily, hourly basis, the Lord shaping your character through these little children who constantly are watching you, it is a refining process, but it is a good one, and I love it. And I'm so thrilled that we live this homeschooling life. So just be encouraged that even though things might feel very overwhelming here in the beginning, that this too shall pass, and you're kind of going to get into your groove of homeschooling. I'm so glad that you're here at Mama's Learning Corner. You're going to find a lot of encouragement as you start this new homeschool way of life, and you'll also find lots of printables and worksheets for your little people. I'll show you how to use them. I'll give you good book suggestions. There's lots of learning activities, so actually over 400. So if you have any questions or comments, you're always welcome to email me. It's Mama, M-A-N-A, at mamaslearningcorner.com, or you can come visit me at mamaslearningcorner.com, and I look forward to hearing from you.